I just received my first Amiga. It was donated to me, and it's not the Mini, it's a real Amiga 500. And it came with a bunch of floppy disks too. It was a little bit tanned when it arrived. By the way, don't put your hand directly into 12% hydrogen peroxide. My friend did it by accident, and his hand now looks like a snooker referee's glove. I didn't really have an Amiga growing up, although I did play my brother's quite a bit when he wasn't looking. But in subsequent years, I would occasionally dig it out of the loft and boot up Police Quest or Leisure Suit Larry. And in this same week, the announcement came of a new Monkey Island game from Ron Gilbert himself. This, along with the Sierra Point and Clicks, was the series that got me into adventure games. And here we are, together again. It feels like 1992. It's got me thinking though, why was the Amiga such a hotbed for adventure games? Well, it was a relatively low-cost gaming computer at the time, so it sold well and had numerous iterations. It had RGB video out, which gave it a nice crisp output, perfect for spotting those one-pixel inventory objects in Future Wars. My Amiga has a chunky 512k of RAM, and the capacity to expand. And all the Amiga systems are backward compatible with previous models, so pick up a King's Quest game and you can still go back and play the previous games. It came packaged with a mouse as standard too, so there's no barriers in terms of having to buy additional hardware. And whilst I have a nostalgia for the 3-voice SID chip of the C64 era, another system I inherited from my loft growing up, the Amiga was able to produce any digitized sound. As I discovered in my review Hook, the DOS version, whilst graphically identical, lost so much in terms of the atmosphere through terrible looped MIDI tracks. You can't underestimate the difference that makes. Having a built-in floppy drive at the time was also a plus, but as a retro system being played in 2022, I expect to encounter some issues with degradation and discs just not working anymore. Which, for games like Police Quest, won't be too much of an issue because that's only one floppy. But the more discs in the box, like with Monkey Island 2, which came on a whopping 12 discs, I think it was, I think the odds of all those discs working are pretty slim. Most eBay sellers say that they've tested it, but you're really only as good as your worst disc in those cases, and I doubt many even played through the whole game just to check it. But you never know. So the question is, now that I have this Amiga, all of my own, what adventure games should I try? There's a few that are on my list, some that I've already played and some that are just on my bucket list, ones that I missed. I spent most of my childhood playing games on the PlayStation, and I played a lot of point and click games on the PlayStation. So that's where I kind of got my fix at the time. It had loads of great games, not many adventure games, but the ones it did have were excellent. We had Broken Sword and Broken Sword 2, and nope, we just had Broken Sword and Broken Sword 2. Anyway, if you want to go back to the real home of adventure games, you're going back to the Amiga era. Or 2022, where we've got a brand new Monkey Island by Ron Gilbert. Anyway, the first game I'm going to play, hopefully, is Loom. Don't ask me about Loom, because I've never played it. Not even watched a second of footage from it. I even closed my eyes when stealing this footage. Yes, I know, it's a classic. Don't judge me. But it's one of those break glass in case of emergency sort of games. I know I'll enjoy it, but the worst feature of any adventure game is the lack of replayability. And I like to think there's something quite comforting about knowing there's a genuine Hall of Famer out there I've yet to experience. Maybe now is the time. Experience it on the real hardware. The next one is Beneath the Steel Sky. I've just said how much I love Broken Sword, and it's the most balanced adventure game of all time in my opinion. And Revolution is a studio with a great standing in the industry. And I'll be wanting to replay the original before tackling the sequel, Beyond a Steel Sky. The Amiga version won't have the excellent voice acting, not the Amiga 500 version anyway. So I'll have to train my cat to read it aloud for me. And lastly, Maniac Mansion. One of the first adventures to give the user a verb interface. It kind of set the standard for future LucasArts games as well. I've played it on the C64, but it's time to enter the modern age, mouse input and everything. So what would you play first on this brand new spanking 30-year-old system that I've got here? Send me suggestions via fax, carrier pigeon, or, the comments section if you're feeling a bit modern.